You guys can jump right in, you know, don't hesitate. Come on.
You're a brave man tonight, sir.
Local government.
Okay.
Both the gentleman sitting next to me and I are from Noble County. We are on the advisory board for the Noble Township. And I'd like to know why, when you have just maybe one or two problems in an area like some of the trustees need, all of a sudden legislators say, okay, do away with it. The governor wants to do away with it. That doesn't make it right. If you want to look at problems, let's look at the Senate, let's look at Congress and see the problems they have. We work to make them work. We try to find solutions. That's what we need to do with local government. Local government is the heart of the people. We are the closest thing they have. We are the ones they come to talk to. And believe me, they find you. It was said in the paper that most of the people don't know you, couldn't find you, and that is absolute lie, because that's just not true.
Yeah. My background is local government. I came out of the Adams County Council. I've heard those comments, and I would say if you went to several of my townships, they can tell you who their township trustee is before they know who I am. I feel local government works, especially in some of the smaller communities, and again, to have a small county. I do think we have to be open to looking at, and on the level of local control, of looking at ways we can combine some services. And I would say this, I've thrown this out to my trustees. We have one township that is predominantly Amish. We have a very difficult time getting anyone to serve on the township advisory board. We have a trustee who in the adjoining township says, you know, maybe we don't need each to do the same job. Can one trustee kind of do both of these townships? Can we have one advisory board? Currently they can't. They can do that on their own. But I don't think the state has given any incentive to. And I think what we need to do is look at, if we have, I think the governor referred to it as a pioneer system. Well, there's a lot of things that pioneers did that we embrace, you know. And one of those things I think is how we're structured is we are a representative of people, and we have a representative government. I do think as things change though, is we do remove some responsibilities away. That we do look at, are there other options out there to be able to combine some of these services? And I think some townships have done that. There's some communities that have done that. That said we're going to merge county and local issues. Personally, I think it needs to be, that decision is made at the local level. This is an issue that I think you're going to find within our caucus. We're greatly divided. I think within the Senate and the House we're greatly divided. But the thing I will say about this issue, as a lot of issues this session, is they're being heard. We're talking about them. And for years there's been issues that we wanted to get the debate going and the discussion, and that's been basically we're not going to talk about these things. So I applaud our leadership, I applaud the Senate leadership, we're having these debates, and I think we will move forward on some government reforms, but we'll see where it goes.
I noticed that you guys, somebody is wanting to take the local and put it on to the county. My comment to that is one center county person has no way of knowing what the outskirts need. Our needs in our area are lakes and a rural community. Our needs are entirely different than Kendallville, who is a large city. So there's no way they understand what we go through on a day-to-day basis. It has to stay in the townships. That's the only way it's going to work.
Yeah, and I'll just add, it's a parochial issue, present me. No, I'm not talking about religious schools. It's every legislator brings their local community's situation to it. And for instance, the proposal, and we can neither write the papers, although I've made every attempt to do so over the last 24 years. I can't write anything for them, and I don't write the governor's speeches either, although I've given several shots at that also. For instance, let me just give you an example. On the issue to do away with the 3 county commissioners and just have a single county executive and make the council a true legislative body. Well, some folks in Hamilton County that are reform-minded and don't like local government necessarily, think there are too many levels, say, well, if we do this, it'll be Bob. Bob hates my area. If there's a Bob there, it's purely by chance. So it's not a Republican issue, it's not a Democrat issue, and that's right. I made a pledge just to get out on the floor, let democracy work, let the elected representatives debate it. We haven't been given that opportunity in the past by the prior manager. Young lady right here, you said a lot of things under your breath. I almost handed you the... I did. Is there one of those little bleep buttons up here? So I was going to hand the microphone this thing, you said it that way too. Okay, well, we may have a different definition of bleep language. Let me give the microphone to others.
First, a comment about...
Why don't you tell us who you are?
Somebody else did?
Actually, we should start doing that. We should have that.
Yes, I'm Kathy Heuer from Fort Wayne, Indiana.
And what brought you here? Kathy?
Interest in government.
Okay. Excellent.
And wanted to hear. And I really, my first comment is about right to work.
Okay.
When you talk about...
That's when you said the bleep language.
But I don't use bleep language. I said that's not true. I don't think that having strong unions in the state of Indiana is a detriment. Just before the election, on NPR, they were talking about how in 2010, there were 25% more auto workers in the state of Indiana than there were in 2009. In Kokomo, the Chrysler plant and all of the feeder plants had hired people, put them back to work, and if I'm not correct, those are union jobs. I think, correct?
That's a problem.
GM brought another line in here to Fort Wayne. There's certainly a strong union. So that's my comment. My question, I need you to go back and do Charter Schools 101 for dummies. You keep saying...
I'll put you in the dummy category, but I'll go back to 101.
You keep saying that charter schools are public schools.
Correct.
I believe I read, and I cut it out, and then I recycled it.
I have some of that too.
I read somewhere that under these plans that charter schools, and tell me if I'm incorrect, are going to be paid like $500,000. These are private entities, right?
Go ahead and finish your question.
Okay, my question is, and then the gentleman asked about how broken windows and things like that were going to be paid for. Tell me what is so special about a charter school, what rules they don't have to follow that public schools have to follow. And by the way, one of my bleepy things was, I thought it was insensitive of you to say that the people back there were, it was like being in a union.
I probably deserve that. And so
I'm not
you did say something bleepy.
I'm not a teacher, and I'm not a union member.
I didn't mean to anyone back there. But the duty. Okay. Okay, so let's do charter schools. Not a private entity. Has to be, they're public school students. The school itself is operated by a non-profit entity, not a for-profit entity. One of the chartering authorities, and right now that has to be a state university or the mayor of the city of Indianapolis, has to be presented with a plan and said, here's what we're going to do at our school. We have a special school for kids that have dropped out of other schools. We have a special school for kids who are drug addicted, like the Hope Academy. We have a special school for kids who are of the lowest income and come from the toughest circumstances. And that chartering sponsor, Allstate or the Mayor of Indianapolis right now, enters into a contract with that school building and its operator, a non-profit entity, to say, all right, here's how we measure you, here's what we're going to do, and then they receive the state average funding for those students at that school, okay, from the state. The state average is $6,500, they get $6,500. That's too much, $5,500, the state average. They get $5,500 per student. Many of them have foundations. They don't receive any capital funds like local schools do. They don't receive any transportation funds like local schools do, other local public schools. So if the window breaks, it's got to come out of the $5,500 per student. Some have foundations that help, or foundations that have purchased a building and they fund the resources. Apparently there's some question as to whether that's going to be used in one circumstance or another. But they are public school students at a public school. What are they free of? They're free of virtually every regulation. It's performance-based. They have to meet the contract. Now, what the new bill says is if we're going to put accountability factors in grade public schools, as Superintendent Bennett is proposing, then we're going to put charter schools under the same accountability factors. They are not under those accountability factors today. Now, we're also giving more entities the opportunity to sponsor those schools, like the mayors of second-class cities, like universities, private universities that are approved by the State Board of Education. And we're also giving the ability to local school boards to convert a public school building to a charter school. Now that's all in the hands of the teachers at that school. Only can be converted with the teacher's approval. Okay? Make sense?
Charter schools in Fort Wayne under the jurisdiction of the Wendy Robinson, who is the superintendent of the Fort Wayne.
No, I think they're, how many do you have up here?
Three.
Been in two of them. And, yeah, are they all state? All state sponsored. And I know you got an experience up here that not everybody's happy with. And I've heard a lot about it. But that's not the same experience that's going on everywhere in the state at all 62 facilities. So, and I'm sure that's that experience is some of the concern that's being expressed here today. Okay, seated in a purple coat. I'm picking you as a softball person. Was that right?
No, you're wrong.
That's
I'm a public school teacher in the area, and somebody had a question about the charter school. Can a charter school ask a student to not come back to their building and return to a public school?
there. Well, first of all, let's get our terminology right.
Can a public charter school
They're in a public school.
ask a student to return to a public school?
Just like any other public school, yes, you can expel students.
So how is that holding them to the same standards? Because public schools cannot get rid of their students.
Public schools can expel a student.
So you're going to expel a student from a charter public school to a public school. Is that how that works?
I really can't answer your question. I suppose so.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, yeah, there are some schools that are set up to receive, some charter schools that are set up to receive just this type of student. The ones that have been expelled.
But my public school receives that type of student every single day.
Right.
My question, I just don't understand how it's the same standard if a public charter school can tell a student to go back to a public school. It's not the same standard. Because we have to educate that child.
Well, you're right. You're right. And there are thousands of examples like that. That's right. That person has a right to attend the statutory and constitutional right, really, to attend the public school that they reside in. Yeah. So if they're expelled from the charter public school for behavior, then if they don't have some other option, yeah, they have to go to the resident.
They don't have to take ours, but we can expel them.
Yeah, and it does go the other way around too. There's plenty of kids, and there are whole schools set up to receive students who are expelled from traditional public schools or charter schools that are set up to receive those children.
Not here. Maybe in Indianapolis, but not here.
Okay. That's because there's caps on charter schools. We're trying to remove the cap.
That deliver discipline, that deal with special populations.
Actually, it does just that.
But it's not
It allows.
specific.
Okay. Well, this is a different mindset, perhaps. We could specifically legislate and regulate all these things, or we could open this up so that people can, educators, some in this room, can innovate, can try something different.
We're not innovating now.
I take it immediately as an insult that you're not innovating now.
You are saying we are not.
It is an insult. I didn't say that, but you can infer what you would like. And I didn't intend to say that if I did. And yeah, there's innovation going on all over the place. Are you setting up a program to take kids that are expelled from the traditional public schools here?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Well, then why are you threatened by someone else setting up a similar program?
I'm not.
Okay, well, some seem to be.
Your bill does not address opening these
For special populations, and you're referring and comparing to schools that open for special populations.
I'm giving an example. You're right, they're not all set up that way.
Here asked a question about students being dismissed from charter schools having to return to public schools. And your argument was that there are special charter schools that service those students. If your option is charter schools to service them, why isn't it written in the bill that way?
Because that's not the only opportunity for charter schools. Well, I see a lot of opportunities for charter schools. They are not a cherry-picking opportunity, although I'm sure not everyone's going to agree with that. I think statistics show just the opposite. It's my hope that there are more choices for parents and more choices for educators who can set up these charter schools themselves. More opportunities for administrators and school boards who can set up these charter schools. Silver bullet? No. Some are hearing me say this is a silver bullet. I've not said that anywhere through. What I have said consistently is parental choice. Keep parents in charge of their kids' education. And to give them more choices. This is my first rodeo, my first year. If I'd only been in 3 months, I'd say, oh, I'm walking away. Been doing it 25. And I have no doubt that giving parents more choice and more opportunity will help public schools, not be the detriment of them. I really believe that. And it's because there's great educators in our public schools that'll react and are reacting. So I'd like to take one from this young lady that I had a conversation with about her son.
My name is Heather Ostrowski. I'm an educator, which probably is a dangerous thing to say in this room.
I'm shocked. Yeah.
I am not here as an educator. I am here as the parent of a significantly challenged child, and I am imploring you, all of you out there, not to forget about those students who are the most significantly affected and who could be the most significantly affected by the changes that are being proposed. I am just here to ask you, please think about those children with IEPs. And while I think it's admirable that the mayor of Indianapolis wants to set up a school just for those kids, that's not where I want my son. I want my son with everyone else because you know what? I know this isn't PC, but there is not a retard line at Walmart. So my kid, when he was 5 years old, ran the wrong way on the soccer field with his shirt on backwards so that he could learn how to function in life. And I'm just imploring you, please, 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 as you think about these changes to education, please think about those kids and put a safeguard in the charter schools. Put a safeguard in it that says you have to be equipped to handle all students. Please, get all. I'm a parent and I'm saying please give those parents who don't have a voice an opportunity so that all students do have, because there is a parent that can't come here tonight and say this and beg you, please give my child a better opportunity, and I'm trying to be that face to say to you, don't forget those children.
Thank you. And I had a very nice discussion over here with Jeff Schroeder and his family. Jeff wrote me a nice letter that I'm going to take back with me, Jeff. And believe me, you're speaking to the crowd on this one. Have a son that was born with some special challenges in life that are not nearly as significant as what Jeff is dealing with or what your son is dealing with. I understand special needs and special students and agree with you. And I'm thrilled that your choice is working right for you, and we don't want to detract from that. Thank you. Gentleman back here in the back, right there. No, come back.
Thanks. I'm new to teaching, but I'm not new to dealing with middle school and high school age kids. I've worked with them my entire professional career, which spans back to 1997. I've worked with kids in Loudoun County, Virginia, which is one of the richest counties in the world. Kids who come from six-figure incomes. Kids whose parents are high-level CIA, Department of Justice, and State Department kids who grow up in those families. I've worked with kids from low-income families, from broken homes, and obviously broken homes can come from rich or poor. The point is, the common thread that I have seen, whether a kid comes from a very poor family or an extremely rich family, is this. When parents are not involved, when they are not engaged, when they are not supportive, encouraging, when they do not provide rules, boundaries, and discipline in the home, those kids suffer.
Yeah.
Now, as an educator, I feel like what I'm being told is that those kids who don't have all that at home, and besides being an educator, I'm also a parent of a soon-to-be 13-year-old and a 10-year-old daughter. So I stand
just get ready to begin for you.
Yeah, but I stand before you more as a parent than as an educator, because I provide that to my kids. There is love, support, encouragement, discipline, boundaries. My kids make the honor roll. They get that from their mom. My son recently brought home a D on his report card. He can do better. He's been grounded. No PlayStation. No computer. Limited TV, because he likes to watch the History Channel, because his dad's a social studies teacher. My point is, we've been dancing around this issue about parents. The issue, we have an education crisis because we have a parenting crisis. They are not mutually exclusive issues. They are intertwined. And to deal solely with the educational crisis without dealing with the parental crisis, you will continue to have an education crisis.
Do you have a suggestion on this? I tell you, we have for decades attempted to legislate parents being interested in their child's education. And there's nothing we can do to make it happen, but I'd be thrilled if you have...
We may not be able to make that happen, but don't start holding me as a teacher accountable for a slew of kids, like this lady said. We can teach them, but we can't learn them. And I'm sure all of us could give you, even I've only been a teacher now for, what, 3 months? I came in late. The teacher got moved and they called me and here I am. All right, I was ready to go. But we all have anecdotal evidence of calling up parents. Your kid's not turning in work. They're not doing anything. They're not bringing their book, so on and so forth. And it falls on deaf ears. It's like making bricks without straw.
Sir, you are exactly right. And I hope that you hold up as much as I will hold up Wendy Robinson as a perfect example of a superintendent who is trying so hard to get the parents involved, and she has been innovative. I urge you to look at the project that she has started with trying to get the parents back into the schools by having the children run parent-teacher nights. She's doing some innovative things, and I hope you praise her for that. I certainly hope that she receives statewide recognition. And who knows, maybe she'll be our next superintendent of education.
I couldn't agree with you more. The concept that we shouldn't evaluate teachers because parents are bad,
I'm not saying
I may
teachers
break
should
there,
evaluate.
but there's no doubt in my mind that you're right, that the problem is in many homes.
But the root starts at the home.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Yes, sir, right here.
Board of Directors. And I'm not here just for SCAN, but I'm actually here for a consortium of not-for-profit agencies.
What does that stand for, sir?
Stop Child Abuse and Neglect.
Okay.
I'm here for a group of not-for-profit agencies that for the past several months have been trying to effect changes in the law that would allow us to help you, and I bring this back right to your beginning comments about how the legislature is facing financial difficulties, and all of our members in our group have been affected adversely as a result of that. It's affected our ability to help those disadvantaged members of the community that many of you have spoken about tonight, and that will eventually end up in the schools where you all teach. What we are trying to do is to effect very modest changes to laws which are restricting our ability to raise funds. We're trying to help ourselves right now to fill the funding gap that we're facing as a result of the loss of state monies. One of the things that I have learned during this whole process is that there are laws that prohibit not-for-profit agencies from, among other things, using credit cards to sell raffle tickets to raise money, prohibit us from using monies that we have raised to pay for the salaries of our employees, and that's our single biggest expenditure, and are generally handcuffing us in our ability to fulfill our missions. What's even more troubling to me, however, is the realization that the state of Indiana, through the Lottery Commission, allows for the use of credit cards to go buy as many lottery tickets as you like. The Indiana Gaming Commission and the casinos in this state, anybody wanting to walk into a casino and pull out a credit card can engage in games of chance for as long as they like. But amazingly, we can't allow the people who support us, who really aren't concerned about making a lot of money at a bake sale, but who want to support us because of the good works that we do, they can't use a credit card to support us. That's one of the few changes, there are several, that have been introduced in a bill by Senator Cruz. It's not before you yet. But it's something that we hope that all of you would look at and try to support. Again, what these not-for-profit agencies do are important not only for the most disadvantaged members of the community, but in the end, what happens to these people is going to affect all of us. So we need your help in getting that done.
Yeah, if you caught my ear on the way in on this, I'm the chair of a foundation that employs 90 blind and visually impaired individuals in Indianapolis. I'm going to look into that. You say Senator Cruz's bill, and
I worked with Dennis a little bit on that bill in the Senate. We did not get one filed in the House, but it goes beyond just that one issue. I think there's multiple issues in there, and really it's a charity gaming bill is what it is. And it addresses a lot of the issues that have to do with how you can use your employees during these fundraiser events. There was a change several years ago on the amount of fees you had to pay, and we're looking at reducing those and some things like that. Because again, at a time when your revenue is down, it's not in our best interest to begin to handcuff you and say, your charity gaming has to meet certain criteria and so on. So I think I don't know where it's at in the Senate, where the status of that bill is, but we'll continue to work on trying to get that out of both houses.
Okay, a couple more right here. You've been very patient.
Yes, I was just wondering when exactly do you expect to have the right to work law come up?
We don't exactly have a plan on it. Look, it's probably the largest issue out there.
Yes.
That honestly we have Republicans that are for it, Republicans that are against it.
Do you support it?
Man, speak out for a moment. The governor's expressed the fact that he doesn't want to deal with the issue this year. That is a distraction to some of the other critical issues. Yeah. Some of the other publicly stated. The Senate has reluctance to deal with it at this point. That's been stated publicly as well. Yes, I do support it. I voted for it in the past when it's been on the floor of the House. But I also am placed in charge of being sure that we get through this legislative session in the key areas that I mentioned to you, including a budget and maps that govern the next decade. And this is probably the one issue, although some of the education reform is equally as volatile, probably the one issue